The needle-sharp claws retracted as Vizira's three-fingered hand patted Kale's head. "Good human," she purred, her iridescent scales catching the artificial light of her palatial chambers. "You're learning the proper behavior for your station." Kale bit his tongue, the metallic taste of blood a reminder of his circumstance. 3 months as an honored companion to the Lashiki ambassador, a glorified pet, and he was no closer to escaping. His muscular frame, once the pride of Earth's special forces, now draped in ridiculous silks that Vizira found aesthetically pleasing. The translator chip embedded in his neck itched constantly, a physical reminder of his captivity. "Stand there." "Look presentable," Vizira commanded as her chamber doors hissed open. The consortium arrives. 4 dignitaries of various alien races swept in, their exoskeletons and membranes presenting a rainbow of evolutionary paths. None spared Kale a glance. Humans were novelties at best, curiosities acquired by the elite. The Lashiki hegemony had discovered Earth only 7 years ago, and immediately classified humans as Class 4 sentients, intelligent enough to serve, not enough to have rights. "Ambassador Vizira," rasped the tallest visitor, a Drendathi with glowing fungal growth sprouting from his shoulders. "The border dispute requires immediate attention. The Marzili colony remains problematic." Kale's ears perked up at Marzili. A human colony, one of the few permitted outside Earth's quarantine zone. Vizira's tertiary eyelids flickered. Anxiety, Kale had learned. "Vexing primitives. We offer protection, and they refuse to relocate." The meeting proceeded, political machinations beyond Kale's official comprehension. But Special Forces training hadn't focused solely on combat. Intelligence gathering had been his specialty. Later, as Vizira prepared for her evening meditation, she gestured Kale to his sleeping alcove, a luxurious cage. "Tomorrow we visit the orbital assembly," she commented absently. "Perhaps I'll allow you to view your homeworld from orbit. Would you like that, pet?" "Yes, emissary," Kale replied with practiced deference. When her breathing slowed to the rhythmic pattern of Lashiki rest, Kale activated the subdermal comm unit that had escaped detection during his capture. Military-grade tech, microscopic but powerful. Operative Kale, authentication sequence Bravo Echo 92. Target moving to orbital assembly tomorrow. Potential extinction level threat to Marzili colony confirmed. Request immediate extraction. The response was immediate, a vibration so subtle only he could feel it. Authentication confirmed. Operation Guillotine active, stand by. Kale closed his eyes, mentally reviewing the embassy layout, guard rotations, and Vizira's personal security protocols. The pet had been watching, learning, planning. Tomorrow would change everything. Morning arrived with a thunderous explosion that rocked the entire diplomatic quarter. Vizira jolted awake, her normally sleek scales bristling with alarm. "What is happening?" she hissed, her translator struggling with her panicked vocal patterns. Kale stood alert, feigning confusion while his mind raced. The extraction team was creating a diversion right on schedule. "I don't know, emissary," he lied smoothly. "Perhaps we should remain here where it's safe." "No." Vizira grabbed her ceremonial cloak. "We must reach the secure transport. The orbital assembly meeting cannot be delayed." As she turned to retrieve her diplomatic credentials, Kale noticed a subtle flash at the window, reflected light on a scope lens. Without thinking, he lunged forward, tackling Vizira to the ground as the reinforced glass shattered and a projectile whistled through the space where her head had been moments before. "Assassins," Kale whispered, his body covering hers protectively. Vizira's multifaceted eyes widened in genuine shock, not at the assassination attempt, but at her pet's unexpected intervention. "Stay down," Kale commanded, his voice no longer that of a submissive companion. He rolled off Vizira, pulling her behind the massive stone desk that dominated her chambers. "You dare give me orders?" she hissed, but the usual venom was absent, replaced by confusion and fear. Another shot splintered the ornate wood inches from their position. This wasn't part of the extraction plan. Something had gone wrong. Or someone else wanted Vizira dead. "Listen, carefully," Kale said, gripping her slender shoulders. Those aren't my people. Someone else wants you eliminated, and they've chosen the perfect moment during this chaos. Vizira's tertiary eyelids fluttered rapidly. The Orvashi delegation. They've been pushing for war with the Marzili colony. The realization struck them, both simultaneously. If Vizira died and the Orvashi representative took her place at the orbital assembly, the vote would swing toward military intervention. Millions of humans would die. We need to move, Kale said, scanning the room. Is there a secure exit? Vizira nodded toward a seemingly solid wall. Quantum-locked passage. Only my genetic signature can activate it. Then we use it, Kale said, helping her up in a crouched position. On my mark, move quickly but stay low. For once, she didn't argue. As they prepared to dash across the exposed area, the main doors exploded inward. 3 armored figures stormed in, weapons raised. Not Lashiki security, but mercenaries in mismatched tactical gear. Kale reacted instinctively. He grabbed a decorative blade from the wall, a ceremonial Lashiki weapon he'd spent countless hours studying while pretending to admire its aesthetic qualities. With precise movements that belied his supposed status as a pampered pet, he hurled it at the lead attacker. The blade found the gap between helmet and chest plate. The mercenary dropped with a gurgling cry. The others opened fire, forcing Kale and Vizira back behind cover. The passage, Kale urged. Now. Vizira pressed her scaled palm against an inconspicuous panel. The wall shimmered and revealed a narrow corridor. Get in, Kale shouted, grabbing a fallen mercenary's weapon. As Vizira slipped into the passage, Kale provided covering fire, the unfamiliar alien weapon bucking in his hands. The mercenaries retreated momentarily, giving him the seconds needed to follow Vizira into the passage. The wall solidified behind them, plunging them into near darkness, illuminated only by bioluminescent strips along the floor. This leads to my private hangar, Vizira said, moving forward with the natural grace of her species. But the security systems will have been compromised if they knew about my chambers. Kale checked the weapon he'd acquired. An Orvashi particle disruptor, military grade. Not something mercenaries should have access to. You understand what this means, he said grimly. Vizira's scales dulled slightly, a sign of distress. The Orvashi representative has diplomatic immunity. If she's behind this, politics comes later, Kale cut in. Survival comes first. They moved quickly through the passage, the distant sounds of battle echoing through the embassy complex. When they reached the hangar door, Vizira hesitated. My security team should be waiting, she whispered. Or more assassins, Kale countered. Let me check first. Before she could object, he eased the door open a fraction. The hangar appeared empty except for Vizira's personal shuttle and 2 security guards, both Lashiki, lying motionless on the floor. Stay here, Kale ordered. Slipping through the door, he approached the fallen guards cautiously, weapon raised, both dead, killed by precise shots to their central nervous clusters. Professional work. The shuttle seemed untouched, but Kale knew better than to trust appearances. He circled it slowly, checking for explosive devices or sabotage. A slight movement caught his eye, a shadow shifting where no shadow should be. Kale dropped to one knee and fired 3 quick bursts. A cry of pain rewarded his instincts as another mercenary tumbled from atop the shuttle, a thermal detonator rolling from lifeless fingers. Kale lunged for the device, deactivating it with seconds to spare. The shuttle was their only way out. It's clear, he called softly to Vizira, but we need to move quickly. As she emerged, their eyes met across the hangar. For the first time, she looked at him not as a pet or possession, but as an equal, perhaps even a superior in this deadly game. You saved me, she said, her translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in her voice. Why? Kale helped her into the shuttle before answering. Because humans protect their own, he said finally. And right now, stopping a war with Earth matters more than my freedom. The shuttle hummed to life under Vizira's touch, its systems recognizing her genetic signature. Kale secured the entry hatch, scanning the hangar for any final threats. Where are we going? Visera asked, her clawed fingers dancing across the control interface. The orbital assembly, Kale replied without hesitation. You still need to cast your vote against military intervention. That's suicide, she hissed. The assassins will be waiting, which is why they won't expect us to go there directly. Kale strapped himself into the co-pilot's seat. Best defense is a good offense. The hangar doors parted, revealing the chaotic skyline of Nexus Station, the massive diplomatic hub orbiting Lashiki Prime. Emergency vehicles swarmed between towering structures, and distant explosions suggested the diversion had grown beyond its intended scope. My security protocols, Visera said suddenly. Enter override sequence Terex 9 Epsilon. The shuttle's console reconfigured, revealing weapons systems and enhanced shielding that Kale hadn't known existed. A diplomatic vessel with military capabilities, standard Lashiki duplicity. Full diplomatic immunity package, she explained, noting his expression. Even ambassadors need protection. They lifted off, merging into the emergency traffic patterns. Kale activated his subdermal comm unit. Operative Kale to extraction team. Status report. The response came through as a vibration against his skull. Situation compromised. Multiple hostile factions engaged. Extraction delayed. Proceed with secondary objective. Copy that, Kale muttered. Your people? Visera asked, her head crest flattening with concern. Yes. Something bigger is happening. This wasn't just an assassination attempt. Kale studied the tactical display. The entire station is in chaos. Visera's scales shifted color slightly. Perfect cover for starting a war. They approached the imposing structure of the orbital assembly, a massive rotating wheel with spoke-like docking arms extending from its central hub. Security was visibly heightened with patrol vessels circling the perimeter. We'll never get through the main approaches, Visera observed. Kale studied the schematics displayed on the shuttle's navigational system. What about maintenance access? Service tunnels? Visera hesitated, then nodded. There's a waste reclamation dock on the underside. Rarely used, minimal security. Perfect. As they altered course, 3 sleek vessels detached from the security perimeter, accelerating toward them. We've been identified, Visera said, her voice tense. Can you outrun them? Not in a diplomatic shuttle. The pursuing craft fired warning shots, energy pulses flashing past their viewport. Ambassador Visera, you are ordered to stand down and prepare for boarding, a voice crackled over the comm. The human prisoner is to be considered armed and dangerous. Kale locked eyes with Visera. Your call, Ambassador, trust me or turn me in. She hesitated only briefly before cutting the comm link. I've seen enough to know something is deeply wrong. What's your plan? Kale smiled grimly. How good are you at atmospheric diving? The maintenance access was barely large enough for their shuttle, forcing Visera to execute a precise docking maneuver while under fire. Warning alarms blared as enemy weapons fire scored their hull. Structural integrity at 60%, the shuttle's AI announced calmly. Almost there, Visera hissed through clenched teeth. With a jarring thud, they connected with the maintenance airlock. Emergency protocols engaged automatically, sealing the connection despite the damage. We need to move quickly, Kale said, retrieving the stolen weapon. They'll breach the shuttle soon. Visera grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Why are you doing this? Even if we succeed, you're still a captive under our laws. Kale met her gaze steadily. Because you were right about one thing, Ambassador. I am learning. Just not the lessons you intended. I'm showing you what humans are truly capable of. They abandoned the shuttle moments before security forces breached it, slipping into the labyrinthine maintenance corridors of the orbital assembly. Kale led the way, relying on the structural similarities to other space stations he'd infiltrated during his military career. The assembly chamber is 10 levels up, Visera whispered, keeping pace despite her injury. Security will be impossible to penetrate. We don't need to enter the chamber, Kale explained. You just need to transmit your vote. Is there a secure terminal you can access? Visera's expression changed as understanding dawned. The Environmental Control Center, My credentials would work there. It's considered neutral territory. They navigated the service tunnels, avoiding patrol drones and maintenance workers. Twice they were forced to hide as security teams swept past, their scanners searching for unauthorized life signs. When they finally reached the Environmental Control Center, they found it deserted, evacuated during the security alert. Hurry, Kale urged, standing guard by the door. Vazira accessed the central terminal, her authentication code still valid. I'm in the voting system, but there's something wrong. The vote has already been recorded. My vote shows support for military intervention. Someone hacked the system, Kale realized. They didn't just want you dead. They wanted to ensure the vote passed even if the assassination failed. Vazira's claws flew across the interface. I can override it, but it will trigger security alerts. Do it, Kale said firmly. Every second counts. As Vazira changed her vote to oppose military intervention, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The terminal screen flashed confirmation. The vote against war with the human colonies was registered. It's done, she said, relief evident in her voice. Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. They were trapped. Lock the door, Kale commanded, positioning himself behind a console with a clear line of fire. Vazira engaged the emergency protocols, sealing the Environmental Control Center. It won't hold them for long. It doesn't need to. Kale activated his subdermal comm. Operative Kale to extraction team, mission accomplished. Request immediate support at Environmental Control, level 47. The response was immediate. Extraction team inbound. Hold position. Vazira watched him with newfound respect. Your people were waiting for this moment. Operation Guillotine wasn't just about extracting me, Kale explained, checking the energy levels on his appropriated weapon. We needed concrete evidence of the Orvashi plot to spark war with human colonies. The reinforced door shuddered under heavy impact. Security forces were attempting to breach their position. They'll kill us both, Vazira said grimly. You for being a dangerous human, and me for treason against the hegemony. Not if I can help it. Kale moved to the environmental controls. These systems regulate atmosphere throughout the assembly, correct? Vazira nodded slowly, her tertiary eyelids flickering with sudden understanding. You're not suggesting nothing. Lethal, Kale assured her. But most species find it difficult to fight when they can't breathe properly. With Vazira's reluctant guidance, Kale adjusted the oxygen levels in the surrounding corridors, decreasing them just enough to induce lightheadedness and confusion without causing permanent harm. The banging on the door became less coordinated, then ceased entirely. Impressive, Vazira admitted. Non-lethal tactics weren't emphasized in your file. Because you never bothered to ask what I was before capture, Kale replied, returning to the door. Hostage negotiation specialist. I prefer solutions where everyone lives. A new sound reached them, the high-pitched whine of precision cutting tools. The security forces had recovered enough to begin a more methodical approach. Your extraction team won't make it in time, Vazira observed. Kale nodded grimly. We need another exit. They scanned the environmental control center. No other doors, no maintenance hatches large enough for them to squeeze through. The ventilation system, Vazira suggested, pointing to a recessed panel near the ceiling. Too small for me, Kale said, studying it. But you could fit. Vazira's scales darkened with indignation. You suggest I abandon you? After you saved my life multiple times? I suggest you complete the mission, Kale countered. Get to your delegation. Present the evidence of Orvashi manipulation. I'll hold them. Here. A bright orange line appeared along the edge of the door as the cutting tools began to penetrate. Vazira stood her full height, her crest fully extended in a display of Lashiki dominance. No, we both escape, or neither does. Then we need a third option. Kale examined the room again, this time focusing on the structural elements. The floor plating, what's beneath us? Water reclamation and filtration, Vazira replied. But the drop is at least 30 meters. Kale grinned. Perfect. Working quickly, they used the environmental control systems to redirect water pressure, creating a buildup directly beneath their position. Then, using the stolen weapon recalibrated to its lowest setting, Kale began cutting through the floor plating. When I finish this cut, we'll have approximately 3 seconds before the pressure differential pulls us through, he explained. Be ready to hold your breath. Lashiki can hold breath for 15 minutes, Visera stated almost proudly. Show off, Kale muttered, but there was no malice in his tone. As the security team's cutting tools created a meter-long incision in the door, Kale completed his circle in the floor. With a groaning sound, the metal gave way beneath them. They plunged downward, carried by the surging water into the filtration system below. The current swept them through a series of chambers designed to process wastewater, finally depositing them in a collection pool several levels down. Kale surfaced with a gasp, quickly scanning for Visera. She emerged beside him, her scales glistening with moisture. That, she said, spitting water, was unpleasant, but effective, Kale pointed out, helping her to the narrow maintenance walkway that circled the pool. They had barely regained their footing when the distinct sound of a weapon powering up froze them in place. Don't move, ordered a cold, mechanical voice. 4 figures stepped from the shadows, not Lashiki security, but humans in advanced tactical gear. The extraction team had found them. Operative Kale, said the leader, her face obscured by a rebreather mask. Step away from the alien. Kale didn't move. She's under my protection. The mission parameters have changed. The team leader's weapon remained trained on Visera. The alien is classified as hostile. Our orders are to extract you only. Your orders are to extract me and any intelligence assets I deem valuable, Kale corrected firmly. Ambassador, Visera has critical information about the Orvashi plot. She's coming with us. A tense standoff ensued, water dripping from both Kale and Visera as the extraction team evaluated the situation. Finally, the leader lowered her weapon slightly. Your call, operative. But if she makes one wrong move, she won't, Kale assured them, placing a protective hand on Visera's shoulder. For perhaps the first time in her life, the proud Lashiki ambassador remained silent, accepting the protection of a species she had considered beneath her own. The extraction team moved with practiced efficiency through the maintenance corridors, their formation keeping Visera and Kale protected at the center. Station-wide alerts blared overhead, security protocols initiating lockdowns throughout the complex. Transport is waiting in Maintenance Bay 16. The team leader, who identified herself only as Riven, informed them in clipped tones. 4 minutes out, assuming no further complications. Kale nodded, still keeping a protective stance near Visera. The ambassador moved with unexpected resilience despite her injuries and ordeal, her posture gradually shifting from the imperial bearing of Lashiki nobility to something more practical, more survival-oriented. The evidence, Visera said suddenly, her voice low enough that only Kale could hear. We need to secure it before leaving. What evidence? He asked. In my private quarters, there's a quantum-encrypted data crystal, she explained. It contains recordings of the Orvashi representative meeting with mercenary contacts. I've been building a case secretly for months. Kale processed this information rapidly. You knew about the plot? I suspected, Visera admitted. The Orvashi have been pushing for expansion into human territory since first contact. I may consider humans lesser, but genocide serves no one. Kale relayed this information to Riven, who responded with predictable resistance. Negative. Extraction parameters do not include detours for alien intelligence that may not exist. Trust me, Kale insisted. This could prevent a war. Riven's masked face revealed nothing, but her posture conveyed clear frustration. Your service record says you're one of the best, Kale. It also says you're a terrible judge of character. Then trust my judgment of mission parameters, he countered. The intelligence is worth the risk. After a tense moment, Riven nodded sharply. Team 2, maintain course to extraction point. Team 1, with me. We're taking a detour. They split up at the next junction, 4 operatives continuing toward the extraction point while Riven, Kale, Visira, and 2 additional team members diverted toward the diplomatic quarters. 5 minutes, Riven warned. Then we abort with, or without your evidence. The diplomatic sector was in chaos. Security forces were spread thin, responding to multiple disturbances created by the extraction team's earlier diversions. They encountered minimal resistance, dispatching the few guards they encountered with non-lethal efficiency. When they reached Visira's quarters, or what remained of them after the assassination attempt, the ambassador moved directly to an ornate sculpture that had somehow survived the destruction. Her clawed fingers found hidden pressure points causing the sculpture to split open, revealing a small crystalline object. "Got it," she announced, securing the data crystal. "Movement," warned one of the operatives, his sensor display lighting up. "Multiple hostiles approaching fast." "Time to go," Riven ordered. They retreated through a service corridor but found their path blocked by a security detail. Energy weapons fire erupted around them, forcing them into defensive positions. "We're cut off from the main extraction." "Point," Riven reported, returning fire with precise bursts from her weapon. "Alternative route needed." Visira touched Kale's arm. "The diplomatic shuttles. My secondary transport is still in Bay 9. My codes should work." Kale relayed the information to Riven, who nodded grimly. "Good enough. Move." They fought their way through to the diplomatic shuttle bay, forming a protective formation around Visira. One of the extraction team members took a hit to the shoulder, the energy blast leaving a smoking crater in his armor. Bay 9 contained a sleek Lashiki shuttle, smaller than Visira's primary transport but equally well equipped. As they approached, however, a figure stepped out from behind it. A tall, willowy alien with pale, translucent skin stretched over an avian skeletal structure. "Ambassador Orvask," Visira hissed, recognizing the Orvashi representative. "Ambassador Visira," the alien replied smoothly. "How disappointing to find you still breathing, and consorting with human military forces no less. The High Council will find this most treasonous." "The only treason here is yours," Visira retorted, "plotting war against a sentient species, for territorial gain." Ambassador Orvask's lipless mouth curved into what might have been a smile. "Territorial gain? How simplistic. The humans represent an existential threat to established galactic order. Their rapid advancement, their unpredictability, they must be contained now, before they become unmanageable." "Like me?" Kale asked, stepping forward. "Seems I'm already pretty unmanageable from your perspective." The Orvashi's eyes narrowed. "You are nothing, a pet who has forgotten its place." "Maybe," Kale agreed, subtly shifting his position to give Riven a clear line of fire. "Or maybe I'm humanity's warning shot." Orvask raised a hand, revealing a small device. "This shuttle has been rigged with explosives. None of you will leave this bay alive." "Actually," Riven said calmly, "that's where you're wrong." Her weapon discharged, not at Orvask, but at something above the ambassador's head. The precision shot severed a hydraulic line, releasing a torrent of pressurized fluid that knocked the Orvashi representative off balance. Kale moved instantly, tackling Orvask and wresting the detonator from her grasp. The alien was surprisingly strong, her avian limbs possessing hidden power. They grappled briefly before Kale gained the upper hand, securing both the detonator and the ambassador. "Shuttle's clear," announced one of the extraction team after a quick scan. "No explosives detected. She was bluffing." "Typical Orvashi tactic," Visira commented, her crest flattening with contempt. They secured Ambassador Orvask with restraints, adding her to their unexpected collection of intelligence assets. As Visira prepared the shuttle for departure, Kale confronted Riven. "This changes everything," he said quietly. 2 ambassadors, evidence of a plot to start an interspecies war. Command wasn't expecting this level of intelligence. Riven removed her rebreather mask, revealing a face marked with old scars and a pragmatic expression. "Command is never prepared for the intelligence we actually gather. That's why they send people like us." The shuttle lifted off under Visira's expert guidance, slipping through the station's defensive grid by transmitting diplomatic clearance codes. As they accelerated away from the orbital assembly, Kale found himself standing beside Visera in the cockpit, watching as the massive structure diminished behind them. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice carrying a vulnerability he'd never heard before. "Now," Kale replied, "we change the narrative between our species." 3 months later, the human colony on Marzili Prime celebrated its first official diplomatic recognition from the Lashiki hegemony. The ceremony took place in the colony's central plaza, a testament to the agricultural success of humanity's first extrasolar settlement. Fields of blue-green crops surrounded the modest settlement, adapted Earth species thriving in the alien soil. Kale stood at attention in his formal military uniform, the insignia of his reinstated rank gleaming in the light of Marzili's distant sun. Beside him, Visera appeared surprisingly at ease in the planet's gravity, her ceremonial robes modified to accommodate human aesthetic sensibilities while maintaining Lashiki dignity. "You clean up well," he remarked quietly as they waited for the ceremony to begin. "Almost didn't recognize you without your 'I'm superior to everyone' posture." Visera's scales rippled with amusement, a reaction Kale had only recently learned to identify. "And you almost look civilized in that uniform instead of the disheveled pet I rescued from assassins." "You rescued?" Kale raised an eyebrow. "That's not how I remember it. History is written by the survivors," she replied smoothly. "And I survived because of you. I haven't forgotten." The crowd hushed as the colony's governor approached the podium, flanked by representatives from Earth's United Governance and the Lashiki Diplomatic Corps. The trial of Ambassador Orvask had sent shockwaves through the galactic consortium, exposing deep-rooted prejudices and fears about humanity's rapid expansion into space. More significantly, it had forced both humans and Lashiki to reassess their preconceptions of each other. "Today marks not just a diplomatic achievement," the governor began, her voice carrying across the assembled crowd, "but a fundamental shift in interspecies relations. For the first time, humanity has been reclassified in the Galactic Registry, moving from Class 4 to Class 1 sentient status with all attendant rights and responsibilities." Applause erupted from the human colonists while the Lashiki delegates performed their traditional gesture of acknowledgement, a formal extension of their head crests. None of this would have been possible without the extraordinary actions of 2 individuals who transcended the barriers between our species, the governor continued, gesturing toward Kale and Visera. Special Operative Kale Navarro and Ambassador Visera Telvaren. As they stepped forward to receive ceremonial medals, Kale whispered, "Still feel like keeping me as a pet?" "Don't tempt me," Visera murmured back. "I have a very nice leash picked out." The jest, unimaginable months ago, was a testament to how far they had come. After their escape from the orbital assembly, Visera had voluntarily testified before both human and Lashiki authorities, presenting the evidence she had gathered against the Orvashi war faction. Her actions had cost her standing among certain conservative elements of Lashiki society, but had elevated her to a position of unprecedented influence in the reformist movement sweeping through the hegemony. The ceremony concluded with the signing of the Marzili Accords, establishing a framework for human expansion and Lashiki cooperation in the sector. As the formalities ended and the crowd dispersed toward the celebration feast, Kale found himself momentarily alone with Visera at the edge of the plaza. "I received new orders this morning," he said, gazing out over the fertile fields that stretched to the horizon. "Command wants me to establish a permanent liaison office here on Marzili. Apparently I have unique qualifications for interspecies diplomacy." "How diplomatic of them," Visera observed dryly. "Though I suspect your unique qualifications involve knowing how to tackle an ambassador without causing an interstellar incident, among other skills," Kale agreed with a smile. "What about you? Will the hegemony send you back to some distant outpost to minimize your disruptive influence?" Visera's tertiary eyelids flickered. Amusement, Kale now knew. "Quite the opposite. I've been appointed permanent ambassador to human territories. It seems my unorthodox approach to diplomatic relations is suddenly fashionable. So we'll be working together." "It appears so," She turned to face him directly, her multifaceted eyes catching the sunlight. How ironic that I once considered you a pet and now we stand as equals. Kale's expression grew serious. Were we ever anything else, really? Visera considered this, her head tilting in the Lashiki gesture of deep contemplation. Perhaps not in essence, but in understanding? Yes. I saw only what I expected to see, a primitive being from a backwater world. I never looked deeper. And now? Now I see a species with boundless potential. Unpredictable, certainly. Dangerous, possibly. But worthy of respect and partnership. She extended her three-fingered hand in the human gesture she had learned. I see you, Kale Navarro. He took her hand, careful of her retracted claws. And I see you, Visera Telvarin. From across the plaza, they heard the governor calling for them to join the celebration feast. As they walked together, Kale couldn't help asking, "So, about that leash you mentioned?" Visera's scales flushed with the Lashiki equivalent of laughter. "Don't push your luck, human. Wouldn't dream of it, Ambassador." As they rejoined the celebration, representatives of two species that had stood on the brink of war just months earlier, Kale reflected on the improbable journey that had brought them here. From captivity to partnership, from prejudice to understanding. Perhaps this was humanity's greatest strength, not technology or resilience or even courage, but the capacity to forge connections across the stars, transforming potential enemies into allies, and perhaps in time even friends. The distant sun of Marzilli Prime began its slow descent toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the colony. But for the first time since humanity had ventured beyond Earth, those shadows didn't conceal threats or dangers. They promised a future where different species could stand together in the growing light of understanding. Visera caught his contemplative expression. "What are you thinking?"